Hey guys, and welcome to a showdown between two fearsome competitors. On the left hand side, leading the war, we have the mighty Inticity, representing ODM, up against Alric Rall and the Empire Regiments. Should be a really good fun game on Blue Reach River, and the reason I wanted to showcase this battle is this Greenskin build is unbelievably awesome, but we'll get to the cool units in just a second. Up front in the vanguard, we have the cheap and cheerful skirmish contingent you'll see most Greenskin forces bring, and that is in the form of Goblin Wolf Rider Archers as well as Goblin Spider Rider Archers who can apply poison, allow these other units to escape unharmed. They're generally just a big pest and they're incredibly cheap, good backline harassment tool, and they're good at anti-skirmishing as well. Now for the front line, again, it's relatively cheap and cheerful. There's some goblins happy to be here and join in the war. These guys not going to be doing too much damage, but can add width to a build and allow wrapping around the enemy. We also have Savage Orcs in the front line, punctured in between some of the goblins just to add a bit more punch to this front line, as well as the 8-peak loons, one of the most cost-effective Regiment of Renown units in the entire game, due to the 8-peak loonies that they can come spinning out of them. Now, the reason this frontline has gone incredibly cheap is because we have a Greenskin Cavalry Corps. Yes, the unthinkable has happened. We have Orc Boar Boy Biggins, who are actually relatively decent now. They did get a buff a couple of patches ago, I believe. 50 charge bonus is certainly nothing to laugh at, especially when they come in with anti-large. But the main thing is they're not incredibly expensive, so you can go very wide with them. We have a mixture of Orc Boys as well as the Biggins dotted all the way along here. Looks like two of the elite Orc Boar Boy Biggins, and then most of the rest are basic, and they can cycle charge on through the front line, saturating on top of the goblins in a similar role that trolls could do, but of course the Orc Boys are a lot quicker. We also have a nice little Dakka line of double Savage Orc Arrow Boys. These guys particularly good because even if you hop on top of them with light skirmishers, they're going to be happy to face them in combat. They whip out their clubs and axes and get down to the dirty business. Leading the force here is over on the right hand side, the legendary Wurzag here, one of the coolest looking characters in the game. His voodoo mask really reminds me of a character from Crash Bandicoot actually. And he's going to be coming in with Effigy of the Git, a fantastic character ability which can pin the enemy in place, which works with really nice synergy alongside the Foot of Gork. We also have Here We Go, which popped on top of that cavalry will all of a sudden turn them into absolute murder machines. We also have Brain Buster and the Bonewood Staff, one of the best items in the game, which you almost always want to bring. It's kind of like the Cloak of Isha for Orion, in the sense that there's almost no matchups or anything where you would not bring it. Now for the forces of the Empire here, it looks like in the front line we have some spearmen with shields, as well as the Sigma Sons, the devoted warriors of Sigma, who are of course unbreakable, a fantastic unit in the front line. Unbreakable troops are very good at protecting the back line, of course, because they hold for an absolute age. We have double huntsmen as well just behind them. They're going to be pretty key to this battle in shutting down that Greenskin Cavalry Corps. In the back lines we have more spearmen as well as some halberdiers. How many units of halberdiers do we have? Looks like just the one, unfortunately. But these guys, pretty cool now. I actually quite like them. Decent armor piercing with the anti-large. And they have a cav contingent themselves rocking for the Empire. We have some basic Empire Knights, as well as the Knights of the Blazing Sun, who are far more elite than all the rest of the cavalry on the battlefield. And we have 2 units of them. But they are heavily outnumbered. So they're going to have to get support from the Huntsman, as well as Karl Franz up in the sky here. And he is going to be bringing, of course, Galmaraz, as well as the Reichland Runefang, which will be buffing up those mid-tier to light-tier heavy cavalry. We also have Stand Your Ground. So if he comes in a big engagement alongside his knights, he should be able to fend off the Greenskin cavalry relatively successfully. We have double pistoliers for a bit of counter skirmishing, and then a Jade Wizard of Life Magic coming in with the Earthblood. And the reason you see a Jade Wizard in Empire quite commonly is because of Karl Franz. You need to heal him up. He's relatively squishy. He is a bit of a glass cannon. Of course, Stand Your Ground can give him a bit more durability, but, you know, not the biggest health pool at 4,000. He can get whittled down by skirmishers, so healing up can be pretty clutch. Huntsman going to do some lovely counter skirmishing, forcing back the Goblin Wolf Rider Archers, but looks like Inticity is aware of this, just going to pull back, dart left and right, and these wolves are disgustingly fast, and they're going to be pretty hard to actually pin down and snipe out. Karl Franz is going to be backing off here as the Huntsmen do rearrange, as the Empire forces do start to stream forward. Nice to see an Empire force with no range actually, apart from some fast-moving pistoliers and fast-moving Huntsmen, but no stationary handgunners, cannons or the like, which is pretty good because often the Greenskins are looking to get into that back line. They're one of the best swarming factions in the entire game, so not having a back line, you know, if they swarm in, oh well, who cares, you're simply going to hack them apart with your close combat troops. Huntsmen doing some good target priority here, aiming at the Savage Orcs. These guys, of course, have 0 armor. They do come in with some physical resistance because of their war paint at 25%. Isn't terrible, but at the same time, this is going to be some great value from the Huntsmen for every Savage Orc they can kill. Looks like the 8 Pigloons are going to be leading the charge, but for the most part, it looks like Anticity's micro is stressed at the moment on the skirmish contingent. He's going to be pulling back out of range of the Pistolers and shooting in as they dart back and forth, and he's trying to target down the Spearmen as well. Lower their leadership so they can break through that front line a little bit quicker, but at the same time, Spearmen and Halberds are going to be one of the biggest threats to his huge cavalry contingent here. So nice little skirmish phase going on so far. Pistolers trying to countershoot where possible. Looks like the Jade Wizard is going to start walking over this way to perhaps heal up some of these beleaguered troops in the form of the Spearmen, who still have a decent amount of models left. Huntsmen are continuing to try to shoot in at the Savage Orcs, so the Savage Orc Arab boys are starting to put some pressure on, as well as the 8 Peak Loons, and in comes the Greenskin Cavalry War. It's such a badass thematic build. I'm a massive fan of it all around. The Wolf-Ride Archers continue to loop up. Looks like they've split into 2 different contingents now, so it's a little bit harder for Alaric Rao to actually shut them down with his Pistolers, splitting in different directions, although it looks like an Earthblood has come down on the Spearmen as the battle lines are getting ready to engage here. The 8 Pink Loons leading the charge, but Karl Franz, not one to sit back and allow the Greenskins to get the bonus of charging in, is going to jump on top of the Orc Boy Biggins and then countercharge with the Empire Knights and Knights of the Blazing Sun, all crashing in here into the Greenskins lines. And it looks like Ryland Runefang has been popped as well. Orc Boar Boys desperately trying to escape using the Goblins as a meat shield to hold back the enemy. It looks like it's been rather successful, as on the other side, Orc Boar Boys have managed to crash into some Flagellants here and do some massive burst damage to them all round. And it looks like we are going to have a Here We Go popped in. All of a sudden, these Orc Boar Boy Biggins have 74 melee attack, but unfortunately, a lot of the cavalry has pulled out, so maybe a little bit too little too late, as they're now going to be destroying Halberdiers and Spearmen instead of those very much more expensive Knights. Savage Orcs and Wurzag are leading the charge here, trying to countercharge the enemy where possible, and 8 Peak Loons getting a glorious cast down the line, destroying, crunching the armour of those Knights and the horses, doing some pretty big work along the battle line. Over on this right-hand side, it looks like Goblins are forcing their way into the back line, where Orc Boys as well as Goblin Wolf Riders just going to overwhelm some Spearmen on this left-hand side. A ton of micro being forced across this battle. It's a very micro-intensive cavalry build. The War has been popped as well, allowing Goblins to pull apart Spearmen. It looks like the Boar Boys are now reassessing their situation before charging into glorious battle once more. But Karl Franz is here, and once again, going to be getting the charge in, and this is one of the big bonuses of Flying Lords, is they're always going to get the charge. So units like the Orc Boar Boys, who do rely on that big charge bonus, all of a sudden, they don't get that. That's kind of taken away from them by the mighty Franz Meister. That's been pinned in place by an effigy of the Git, allowing these Biggins to do some really huge damage to Karl Franz, and he's in trouble. His leadership desperately low. Looks like we did have a big Foot of Gork come down here as well, trying to hit the Empire Knights, but good management here from the Empire, managing to pull them away just in time. So there's only a few, Sigma Suns and other cheaper units who did take that damage. Karl Franz has just about managed to get back up into the air after taking some huge damage straight at the gate, down to about half health here, but if he gets an Earthblood or 2 on him, he'll be feeling a lot better. Orc Boar Boys do meet the charge of the Knights of the Blazing Sun, but it's not going to go too well, I don't think, for the Orc Boys, as more Empire Knights do stream in, and Karl Franz leads the charge. Stand Your Ground has been popped, making these Empire Knights warriors of indestructible nature here, especially for the lowly Orc Boys. It looks like Earthblood is going to be coming down as well to heal up all these key troops. Now in the back line, the Huntsmen have been saved and kind of consistently pulled back behind Spearmen, and the poor Goblin Wolf Rider Archers are now struggling to get in and shut them down, which is pretty huge, as elsewhere Orc Boar Boy Biggins are overrunning some of the more expensive Knights of the Blazing Sun, as well as the 8 Peak Loons and Savage Orcs slowly dragging their way through the Spearmen, but they're not able yet to shut down the Huntsmen. The Savage Orc Arab Boy line is still alive and active, firing in, aiming at the Naked Fanatics, as well as going to be trying to target down Karl Franz every time he pops in. Galmoraz has been popped as well, giving that lovely bonus versus large, but Wurzag is taking the charge to the Emperor of the Empire here, charging there, getting a little bit of poke before cackling and running away. Good use of Wurzag so far. He's done some pretty good kind of sneaky spells and so forth. The Here We Goes can be very good, but the problem is here, the main units he wants to engage with have been able to slip away every time the buffs have gone down, but they are slowly being whittled apart now by this Orc Daka line, and both forces having their range online during the late stages of this battle. Goblins still slowly dragging their way through Spearmen. Spearmen will hold the line for an incredibly long time up against such units, and it looks like the Pistolers are now a little bit more safe in this central pocket from the Daka line, are going to be whittling forward and slowly kiting back the main push now of the Greenskin forces. Huntsmen are taking the high ground, and as we can see, huge cavalry still remains for the force of the Empire. Earthblood coming down as well, healing up Knights as well as Karl Franz himself, was a really nice cast. But the Greenskins do have the infantry game won on their behalf, at least. Savage Orc Arrow Boys, though, taking some fire now from the Huntsman. It looks like some sneaky Orc Boy Biggins, as well as Forest Goblin Spider Rider Archers, have managed to evade these Spearmen before charging towards the back line, but deciding with so many Empire Knights nearby, it's better to come in and collapse on the front line, so the rest of the Greenskin force can start pouring through, and these Spearmen have now been absolutely destroyed. They held for a long time, did a good job, but yeah, being completely surrounded by pesky gigantic spiders, as well as Orc Boys, isn't going to be the funnest vacation of all time. Goblins are going to be forcing themselves forward as well, pushed into the front lines by these Savage Orcs, who would rather sit back and take less of the damage. And it looks like the Cavalry are lining up as well for perhaps one more big engagement. But with Carl and Franz alive, it's going to be really tough to win any Cavalry one-on-one fight for the Greenskins here. Pistoliers dancing around, looking like they might be charging into combat, but maybe just getting it nice and close so they don't miss too many of their shots. Forest Goblin Spider Archers need to peel off and do some damage to them. Looks like the Orc Boy Biggins, it's such a mouthful there, are the focus of attention from the Pistoliers, which is a good idea. They have that bonus versus large, will be good at taking down the Knights. Empire, real good conservative play here, keeping all his Knights at the back with Carl Franz and healing them up with Earthbloods. If the Greenskins want to slow roll you, that's fine. Simply sit back, heal up your troops where possible. Pistoliers continuing to try to whip around this flank and get on top of the Orc Boys. All the while, Carl Franz is darting into the front line. And yeah, I don't know if any of these goblins woke up this morning. They were really expecting to face a demigod of a man. I know he's not actually a demigod, but in the eyes of the Emperor, I suppose he is. But a war is popped and summoned. A last push from the Greenskins. Savage Orcs are saturating on top of the Orc Boys. The Carl Franz has popped Stand Your Ground, as well as the Reichland Runefang, buffing all the nearby troops. And if we do a glorious close-up stream through the battle here, it is absolute carnage. Even Wurzag is getting involved in the hand-to-hand there. The war, though, has now gone out of the lungs of the Greenskins. A really lovely brainbuster does go down on the cavalry units, but the backbone of the Greenskin force has been shattered now, as it looks like the cavalry of the Empire has managed to win the day. A valiant defeat indeed there by Anticity. Massive shout out to him for sending this one in. That's one of my favourite games to cast in a while. Really awesome build all round, and well played to Alric Raoul as well for claiming victory for the Warriors of Sigma. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. If you did, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. We do have new videos every single day. If you'd like to support the channel in any other way, feel free to have a look over on my Patreon, or you can become a member of the channel. Anyway, for the builds, as I said before, I'm a huge fan of Anticity's build. I don't think it's super competitive, because well, I mean, it kind of can be if you can catch your opponent off guard, but the main problem it had was Carl Franz not having anything to drag him down. Now, they nearly managed to do it at that mid-stage when they pinned him in. A really lovely play with Wurzag, getting the effigy of the Git, and you can see he did some pretty decent damage throughout with those brain busters. Pinning him in and then trying to overwhelm the mighty Carl Franz with the Orc Boy Biggins was a fantastic idea, and it nearly pulled off. But he's got so much mass, he managed to drag himself free, get back up into the sky, and then good healing coming in from Alric Raoul really saved the day for him. But all round to the Orc Boys did kind of struggle. 1 or 2 units managed to pay for themselves and get some pretty good value, but for the most part, they kind of had quite a rough matchup here. It was just a load of pointy, angry spears, anti-large huntsmen, and good cycle charging from the knights. But it is certainly something I think can work, so I'm interested to see some more Greenskin cavalry builds. The Savage Orc Arrow Boys did a really good job as well. Only 7 kills, but doing some pretty consistent damage to those knights. And of course, the 8 pig loons, always very good. As for the Skirmish Corps, they're very cheap, but they actually kind of struggle to pay for themselves here, mainly whittling down spearmen and halberds, trying to shoot those units who were the biggest threat to the Greenskin cavalry, but really they need to try and hop on top of the huntsmen and shut these guys down. But honestly, across the board, no single unit really performed incredibly well for either force, apart from maybe Carl Franz, but his damage value was relatively poor, but at the same time, he was pretty healthy at the late game. Knights of the Blazing Sun not doing too bad for themselves at all, but nice spread of damage across both forces. Alright guys, hope you enjoyed that one. It was a pretty crazy fin indeed. Let me hear your big wahs in chat for a heroic effort there by Anticity. Until next time guys, peace, and as always, stay awesome.